All right. Thanks for coming back to the Bigfoot Society podcast. I have the privilege of having a duo with me today, and we are interviewing the author, John L. French, of the first book in the. And I want to make sure that I'm doing, yes, for the video, make sure you're watching this on YouTube. You can see, I've got mine here too. I'll show this too, this cool Snallygaster. I bet John has one too. We're gonna
I
show it
can one
together.
up you.
Yes.
Oh, you have the original drawing. Oh,
I
of course.
do.
All right. So want to make sure I'm saying it right. Is Systema Paradoxa? That's the
Yes.
one thing. Okay, perfect, perfect. So Systema Paradoxa, Volume One, When the Moon Shines, as accounted by John L. French, and it took me halfway through the book to get the pun in the title. I was like, "Oh yeah, moonshine, duh." Like good show there. So we've got author John L. French, and we've got Danielle Ackley-McPhail, who well, I'm just going to read the bios first, and we'll get into it, and I'll let you explain a little bit more. So let's start. This is off of the website for eSpec Books. Award-winning author and editor Danielle Ackley-McPhail has worked both sides of the publishing industry for longer than she cares to admit. In 2014, she joined forces with husband Mike McPhail and friend Greg Schauer to form her own publishing house, eSpec Books LLC. In addition to her many different books she's written, she crafts and sells original costume horns under the moniker The Horny Lady Custom Horns, and homemade flavor infused candied ginger under the brand of Ginger Kick at literary conventions on commission and wholesale. Danielle lives in New Jersey with husband and fellow writer Mike McPhail and three extremely spoiled cats. That's an awesome bio. Going on, we've got Mr. John L. French is a retired crime scene supervisor with 40 years' experience. He has seen more than his share of murders, shootings, and serious assaults. As a break from the realities of his job, he started writing science fiction, pulp, horror, fantasy, and of course, crime fiction. So let's start with this. Is there anything that we need to fill in the blanks that you would like the audience to know that we didn't cover in those bios?
We have actually just celebrated our 5th year as a publishing company,
Oh, wow.
and we're ramping things up and really getting to some really amazing projects.
That is awesome.
And
That is
I think my bio covers everything.
awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So the reason, of course, that you're on this podcast is, I will say right off the bat, yeah, I'm a big fan of Cryptid Crate. I am was called an affiliate with them. So and uh, you'll actually hear more about that at the end of the episode, because I have like a
Cool.
little blurb I say every episode about Cryptid Crate.
Mhm.
But these guys have partnered with Cryptid Crate, and if you get Cryptid Crate, you actually got the first book in the last month's, which is January, crate. You got When the Moon Shines, which I've read it. It's an awesome book. But I want to
Thank you.
read the description about what Systema Paradox is, and then we'll kind of flesh that out a bit. So,
Mhm.
there are creatures lurking in our world, obscure creatures long relegated to myth and legend. They have been sighted by a lucky or unlucky few. Some have even been photographed, but their existence remains unproven and unrecognized by the scientific community. These creatures, long thought gone, have somehow survived. Creatures from our nightmares haunting the dark places. They swim in our lakes and bays. They soar the night skies. They hunt in the woods. Some are from our past, and some from other worlds, and others that have always been with us, watching us, fearing us, hunting us. These are the cryptids, and Systema Paradoxa tells their tales. That's really cool. But tell me, what is this? Is this a series of books? Explain to me a little bit more about what Systema Paradoxa is in your own words,
So
besides what I've just read.
when we were originally approached by Cryptid Crate just to see if we had any cryptid content, we
Mm,
had not explored that area of speculative fiction yet. The people that we knew that were into it and had a history of writing cryptid fiction, unfortunately, have left us.
oh,
Um, CJ Henderson is one of the big reasons that we actually are a publishing company. And he's where we had our introduction to the genre. And so originally we said we don't, but we could. And the original plan was to have an anthology of 3 novellas, one by myself, one by John, and one by a friend of ours named James Chambers, who is a
Okay.
Bram Stoker award-winning author.
Oh, wow.
So we had a good idea there. And when they explained why they needed the fiction, because they didn't present themselves as Cryptid Crate, it was an individual that contacted us to say if we had the content.
Cool.
And so it's like, well, if that's what you need, how can we transition this into something bigger that's going to give you
Exactly.
ongoing content that you need? So I tend to take a concept and do a little research and just run with it. So as I was researching the cryptids and came up and discovered the origin of cryptozoology, the
Mm-hmm.
Systema Naturale and Animal Paradoxa, and unfortunately that was already taken as a book name. So I was like, well, I'm not going to go there, but I played with it a little bit and came up with Systema Paradoxa. And because, well, as a nod to the original content that it was coming from, I wanted to assume an encyclopedic feel.
Oh, okay.
So I researched old encyclopedias, looked at samples of pages,
Nice.
and when I came up with the design for the book, I tried to mimic that, including the cover design, which it's not so easy to tell online, via video, but we did a pseudo embossed leather cover.
You can definitely tell it when you have the book in hand. Like it
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
cool. Yeah, it looks cool.
And so we wanted to capture that feel of the original accounts and all of that, and give that scholarly approach to it. So
Yeah.
all the authors are doing their own takes, and they're in all different time periods and different regions and
Oh man,
cryptids,
that is
but
so
the
cool.
series will have that ongoing style. And in the back of each one of them, there is an encyclopedia entry regarding the particular cryptids that are in that book.
Awesome.
So in keeping with that, the artwork is produced in black and white in the book,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but the artist, this is by Jason Whitley, and it's one of his particular strengths is that creepy monster type vibe. And it was perfect
You
for
got
an
the sticker too.
encyclopedia.
Yeah.
So he is actually illustrating all of the books in the series.
Oh,
And
cool. That is awesome. So you'll have that
yeah,
like continuity. That is so cool. I love that.
so all the covers are going to have the line art on the front and the actual
Awesome.
black and white image in the back. And our goal eventually is James Chambers and Jason Whitley will put together a field journal that will feature the color artwork.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
So it's there's a lot of ideas that have come out of that one simple
Mm-hmm.
question.
So I've got a question for both of you.
Okay.
And this is just kind of like, this would be a good intro. So, good intro question. What is your personal favorite cryptid? And I'll have John go first if you're cool.
Well, obviously, right now, it's the Snallygaster,
Right?
which is the one of the cryptids in When the Moon Shines. And of course, the second one is the Dwayyo,
Mm-hmm.
which is the other cryptid. And one of the reasons I chose them is that they are local cryptids. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and Frederick County, Maryland is about an hour away. And that is where the Snallygaster and the Dwayyo have been reported, have been cited. The Snallygaster goes all the way back to before Prohibition era, and was part of the legend involves Prohibition, which is why I said it at that time. So those are my right now, those are my favorite cryptids. If I ever do another book for Systema Paradoxa, I may have another one.
So I'm a Jersey girl, so it has to be the
So,
Jersey Devil. But
right,
really,
yeah.
I love them all. I love the lore and legend and the what if, and I love ever since I was young in English class and all of that, when they started introducing myths and legends, I
Yeah,
love to take the core of the story and figure out what real life event might actually lead to that story.
that's cool.
You know, like
Yeah, yeah,
centaurs. If you've never seen a mounted man before, you would assume that a rider on a horse is a part of the horse, and so you have
right.
centaurs, things like that. And so my mind always played with it, and so I love the different aspects of cryptozoology and the what if, and finding the root of that and the origin. So
That is
so I love them
cool.
all.
Yeah, I mean,
They give me
uh,
room to play.
it does, yeah. But I mean, yeah, growing up in Jersey, definitely the Jersey Devil, like that had to have been a part of your life. Like you probably heard about that all as a little kid. Like I'm guessing it's in everywhere. It's in
Yep.
school.
Yep.
It's your
Field trips
grandmother's
to the
stories.
cranberry bogs and all that in
Oh,
Basto
cool.
Village, Wheaton Village.
Oh man, that is cool. John, I am curious. What did you use any resources to research the cryptids that you were writing about in this book?
Actually, when Danielle first told me about the project, which was at the time an anthology, I I didn't want to do, no offense to the society, but I didn't want to do Bigfoot or,
Right, right.
Jersey Devil
Yep.
or a cryptid everybody has heard about. There is a local writer, Matt Lake, who wrote
Oh yeah, totally.
Weird
Yep, yep,
Maryland.
yep.
And so I turned to Weird for my first resource was Weird Maryland to see. Well, I know Maryland's weird, but what cryptids had been cited or believed to have been cited in Maryland? And the first one I read about was the Coyote, a cross between a hyena and a coyote.
Oh, cool.
There was the Goat Man.
Yeah.
There's the Bunny Man, but that's just some guy in a suit.
We know him.
And then I read about the Snallygaster, which was, fascinating. And so I started looking up. Oh, and he also had a column on the Dueyo, which he started with Dueyo.
Of course. So
Yes,
go
because you
right
have to.
into it, man.
And so I started looking up both of them to see which, can I get any ideas out of these? And I liked the Snallygaster because of the connection with moonshine and the Prohibition era. Growing up, I was a big fan of Eliot Ness and the Untouchables, still am.
Awesome.
And I've written pulp, I've written crime stories. And then I started reading about the Dueyo, and there was an entry. I mean, this is all online, and there was I forget which article, but it mentioned that the Dueyo was the mortal enemy of the Snallygaster. So now I have some kind of conflict.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah.
And once you bring in, a couple of competing gangs trying to wrap up the roadhouse business outside of a mythical city of mine called Harbor City, then
Okay, that was a question I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then I just had to just listen to the characters and and then actually come up with the some of the aspects of the Dueyo, of the Snallygaster, because there are so many different variations. And I took all these variations as being true and had to come up with a way of reconciling what they were like. So there are some snallygasters that have tentacles. There are some snallygasters that don't have tentacles. So rather than being two different species, I decided these were gender-based characteristics.
Yeah,
And
which is a really cool idea.
Which you saw, and you saw what I did with them. There was a couple scenes I didn't think Danielle would let me do, and you know which ones I'm talking about. Because when you're dealing with,
I knew that was gonna, I knew it's gonna. So, it's a good book.
Thank you.
What would I'm just curious. What would you rate the book? Like, if you were to, is it like a PG or like? I'm not sure. Like,
I would give it a hard PG.
Okay, all right.
Since I didn't really go into too much detail, and I've seen worse on television.
Exactly. It's kind of like and fade to black, which is
right.
Yeah,
well,
but it's well done. So,
I think I can tell you the first romantic scene I have ever written. It was in a book called The Devil of Harbor City, which is where that comes from, and it was in a place known only to them. Two lovers met. Afterwards, and that's it. Yeah, afterwards. So, none of your business what happened between, right. After they met. And same thing with the Dueo. I wanted to incorporate, they seem to be canine based, so I wanted to incorporate the idea of the pack. So
it's interesting in your research. So the one question I had is, and I haven't gotten really crazy into either of these cryptids, so that's another part where I found this book very fascinating, because I was like, this is really cool, because it's not just like I read a lot of Bigfoot stuff, but this is totally different. So the fact where there's a lot of like uh telepathic, mind speak, things like that, is that something you added in yourself, or is that actually part of the cryptid legend?
The Dueo were said to be able to influence the minds of their prey, to freeze them and to make them afraid. So that was the whole idea behind the mental communication. And so it just, I took, since the Dueo could do it, I just decided that would be a good way for the Snallygasters to communicate as well.
Nice.
I think the way that you did that, because the character that they communicate with, there's already a connection between his family and the Snallygasters, which is why you can recognize them. So there's already been a genetic exchange.
Yes.
So it's not beyond reason, because they would have to have a way to communicate with themselves, and with that genetic mingling, that would carry over to him.
Exactly.
In my thinking.
And the creepiest character to me in the book was the kid.
Oh, the kid was like, oh my goodness, like, because you can tell, you're like, oh no, he's gonna turn really not, and it's like, yeah, he turns a corner.
Yeah, and he's actually he scares me more than the Dueo.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with. There's nothing like an unhinged human with nothing to lose and no
too many gangster movies.
So one of the things that we did with the series that you may not have noticed is that old encyclopedias often started off with a quote at the top. So the one for this book is, "Have pity on them all, for it is we who are the real monsters."
Yeah.
And part of that was tying into that character and the mob and all of that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, totally. Oh man. So it's a thing where, like, I read the PDF version of it, but I think I'm gonna go back and read it again in actual. There's something about reading something in your hands as a book, and I think I'm gonna do that, because I think I'll get a lot more. I'll probably stuff I might have missed. And also, our furnace was dead at the time, so I was like semi distracted as well. But
I wanted to add something real quick, because John said that he picked these because they were not the well-known ones.
yes,
That's actually one of the requirements of the series to
awesome.
meet Cryptid Crate's needs. We are touching on one or two of the big ones,
Okay,
but those are select authors that have been given a pass to do this. All of the authors have been instructed that they have to find an obscure cryptid
that is cool.
to tell their tale.
I like that. Remind me, how long is the series planned for again?
There is no end cap to it.
Nice. Okay.
Right now we have probably 12 manuscripts already either
Oh man.
planned or in-house. And there's probably another 10 authors beyond that that have expressed interest, including, ironically, Matt Lake. So we'll see where it
Nice.
goes. You know,
That's
we
cool.
don't have any reason to end it. I don't think we're going to run out of cryptids anytime soon.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, and it's like just when you think you've gone to the end, then you start looking into other countries, and your mind is just like blown
Yeah.
because it's like, holy mackerel! Have you ever looked into cryptids from the Norwegian countries? That stuff
Well,
is wild.
Yeah.
yeah, I try to do that a little bit in When the Moon Shines, because one of the mob bosses is, is from another country, and he's familiar with cryptids, and he actually refers to one or two from his country.
I picked that up, and I thought that was really cool. I was like, is there stuff in here that might be referring to future books, or like there's a lot of really good detail. I mean, it'd be interesting to see um these books. I know they were first released through Cryptid Crate, right?
Mhm. Well,
Are
what it is, if the book is slated for one of the exclusive crates
mm-hmm.
where all of the content is going to be based on the book or
Okay.
the creature in the book,
Yeah.
those will first appear in Cryptid Crate and won't release commercially until after that.
Okay.
But we have a tentative agreement that there will be 4 quarterly books that are exclusives,
Nice.
and then 2 that are non-exclusives.
Okay.
So the non-exclusives we can release at any time,
Okay.
as long as they fall within the, the series order.
Right.
And that's our only real restriction.
Nice.
And that's also how we will, because some people are always still going to want those well-loved, well-known cryptids.
Oh yeah,
So
you gotta get Bigfoot and Mothman in there somehow. I mean, the people eventually be like, "Come on, guys, you
those
gotta."
are already slated,
All right, cool.
and the same with the Jersey Devil.
Nice.
And those are the only big ones that we have so far.
Sure.
But we will be able to explore those because they'll be non-exclusive ones, and
Okay.
Cryptid Crate isn't obligated to carry any particular book, so there's always potential that some books may not appear in the crate at all.
Gotcha.
But they'll always be available.
That's cool. And they're on I think I saw like they're in Kindle form as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you can
Yes.
get
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. John, I got a question for you. So I don't know if you were trying to, maybe it just came out, but it's like the whole time I'm reading the book, I couldn't get the movie Road to Perdition out of my mind.
Ah,
I was
yes.
like, oh man, like I gotta go see that. Not it was
Well,
just like that whole like gangster thing. It was
it
crazy.
wasn't deliberate. I have read Road to Perdition. I read it when it came out in the DC graphic novel, and I've read all of Max Allan Collins' Nate Heller series, and a couple of his other books. Big Max Alex Collins fan. One of my favorite convention moments is basically talking to Max Allen Collins for about an hour
Oh wow.
at the BoucherCon.
Wow.
So yeah, there's probably that. But like I said, I grew up watching The Untouchables. I love reading about that kind of true crime. I've written Pulp Fiction. One of my first books was The Devil of Harbor City, emulating at least Carol John Daly. It's a story about a collection of stories about a corrupt city where the only basically the non-corrupt organization is the police department. And that's only because the state controls the police department rather than the city.
Yeah.
And there's one cop who's told, do whatever you have to, clean up the city.
Oh snap.
And and his name is Frank Evelyn, and circumstances have him nicknamed the Devil.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's cool. So that's Harbor City, which was, by the way, named because before, when Baltimore had this boulevard on the west side, and before it was named Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. It was briefly Harbor City Boulevard.
Oh.
So that's the name. I said Harbor City. I like that name, and I used it. City wasn't using it anymore, so so that's where the Harbor City comes from. And I've set several stories. I mean, I've set the Frank Devlin's tales in there. I've set other stories in the future of Harbor City. If Danielle ever does the sidekicks and henchmen story, she'll get one set there.
I have to think about it.
And so that's where it comes from. As you mentioned, I'm a retired crime scene investigator and supervisor. So my first fiction was crime fiction. And I gradually got sucked into the world, into fantasy, writing about badass fairies, and blame her.
I'm responsible for that one too.
Yeah, and zombies and the world of Lovecraft and all that.
Oh boy.
Danielle mentioned C.J. Henderson. He and I were friends before I became a writer, and when I did become a writer, he taught me a couple of lessons, one of which was, if somebody says, can you write about X? The answer is yes. Then you figure out how to do it.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah. Like, I think that's a good thing for life in general. Like if you're trying to go, figure it out. Totally. Yeah. That's good advice.
So when Danielle said, can you write about cryptids? Yeah, I can do that. Or actually, you mentioned her husband, Mike. He edited a series of still does a series of military science fiction.
Oh, wow.
Defending the Future. She would have killed me if I forgot. And he came up to me and says, John, can you write a crime story for Defending the Future, the anthologies? And I said, sure. And then the part of my brain that doesn't really pay attention, or actually it was my mouth ignoring my brain, immediately said, I'll write you a locked airlock story. And that's when my brain said, and as soon as Mike said, good idea, the rest of my brain said, what the hell did you just do? But I wrote it. I wrote it and got it out.
Nice. Yep. That's awesome. Nice work.
And I based it on a Sherlock Holmes story.
Which is way cool. Oh, man, that's even cooler.
Well, actually, a comment by Watson about James Fillmore, who walked into his house to get an umbrella and was never seen again.
Nice.
In reference to that, the ship is the Earth Federation ship, Fillmore.
Awesome. We have a question from Jacob from the Patreon. Do you, and if this is a thing where it's, you can say no comment if you want to, if it gives stuff away. But okay, so will we get any cryptid crossovers in future books like Godzilla vs. Kong, but with cryptids?
Some of the books involve more than one cryptid, and some of them are this versus that.
Nice.
In fact, the Bigfoot story, the first time it appears, the author has two planned. And the first one is going to be Montauk Monster versus Bigfoot. And then the
awesome.
second one will be the rematch.
Oh my goodness, that's legit.
And another friend of ours is basically considering a cryptid fight club.
Cryptid fight club.
I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Yes,
but
that's
they're
Danielle,
all trusted. So
Danielle, we don't. One of the rules of the Cryptid Fight Club is we don't talk about the Cryptid Fight Club.
Cryptid Fight Club. That's awesome.
But it doesn't exist.
Thanks for the exclusives about the future. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think it works. I mean, having one cryptid is fun. Yeah. But then you have to, there has to be conflict. And if you only have one conflict, right. And you don't have Teddy Roosevelt hunting a Snallygaster, which would be a cool story. That would be cool. You need something for the cryptid to go up against, because we all know that man is the worst predator, and he tends to destroy what he doesn't understand or what he fears. Which is a point I think I made in the book.
It's no, you did. It's such a scary thing to keep
so if you give if you have another cryptid, particularly like if they're both fighting over the same territory, it just ups the conflict.
Mm-hmm. Nothing exists in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the thing that is crazy about this as book is it's like, and I'm going to put a thing before this part. It's going to be like, hey, there's going to be potential spoilers. Read the book if you don't want, read the book anyways, but read the book if you don't want potential spoilers. So it's like, because the book starts where it's like, okay, Snallygaster versus Dueo, like territory battle, but then there's an even bigger territory battle where you have the rival gangs. And I thought that was a really cool, like how you kind of work that together and it was all happening at the same time. Like that was really cool. I like that. Yeah. Did you I know sometimes when I'm like doing creative things, like I'll listen to music to kind of get me into a certain mood. Do you listen to you have like certain types of music when you're writing? Or
I can't listen to anything. It's
really okay.
just the voices in my head.
I used to listen to instrumentals.
Oh yeah, okay. Nice.
And I found that I've reached the point where I just need complete silence. I will actually put in earplugs.
Interesting.
Because my husband and I share an office. Okay. And even if he's not in the office, if he's downstairs, there's still sounds filtering up. And I never know which one needs my attention. So this way, if I have earplugs in, if he needs my attention, he has to come get me.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I don't need absolute silence, but like I said, I can't, if I'm concentrating on the story, whatever story I'm writing, I have to, my full attention has to be on the story. Otherwise, I never listen to music, but I'm afraid that if I start listening to music, I may start writing in time to the music.
So make it good music.
Totally.
And accidentally write an opera. I mean,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The question for both of you, since you are both writers, holy mackerel. The train just left the station and nothing's in it. Oh no. When you're a writer, right, and you have these stories that have a lot of characters in it, how do you guys keep this all straight? Do you have certain things you do to be like, okay, Billy over here is this, and this, or do you keep it all in your head? What do you feel works best for you to keep your stuff straight?
When my attention was less divided, I could
Mhm.
keep it in my head. But like right now, I'm working on a military science fiction novel.
Nice.
And on top of that, it's a novel that I haven't looked at in 8 years
Oh wow.
because
Oof.
life got in the way. So I had to actually create an Excel spreadsheet so
Mhm.
that I could see who everybody was, what their affiliations were, and any little details that I needed to keep straight. And it's complicated because I don't use an outline and I don't plot things out ahead of time. So I have a basic idea where I'm going, but I totally pants it. And I don't even write in a linear fashion.
Really? Wow. That is
Um,
interesting.
It works for me,
yeah,
but it
Yeah,
but
doesn't
that's
work
great.
quick.
Yeah.
if it's, first of all, I don't really write novels as such. I've written a couple recently, but mostly I'm a short story writer,
Okay.
and I tend to write connected short stories, which, when
Mhm.
put together, appear to be a novel.
Nice.
Danielle actually was the did typesetting for the second edition of Devil of Harbor City, which was a series of connected stories, and she turned it into a novel.
Mm.
But when I'm dealing with a lot, either an extended work like When the Moon Shines, I'll have a rough outline. And sometimes, if I've got a lot of characters, I'll have to write down who these characters are and what they do.
Right.
But
Right.
it's not a spreadsheet. It's sort of like
Mhm.
things written on scrap paper,
Right.
so that I can just refer to that. But my outlines tend to be rough, and just like some general said, no battle survives the the strategy. No outline survives the book.
That's a good quote. I've never heard that. That's awesome. I like that. That's good. Do you not to put you both on the spot, but do you each have a favorite part of the book
Of
that comes to
John's
mind?
book,
Yes. Yeah.
I really liked the way that he developed the Snallygasters
Mm-hmm.
and their
Yep.
particular voice. So all the scenes with the Snallygasters,
Yeah.
Well,
they just stand out to me.
my favorite part is actually was the first part that I wrote.
Okay.
The one, chapter 1, it starts, "The night was still and bright with the light of the gibbous moon."
Mm.
It's where the father and 2 sons are out guarding the still, and there are things out there in the woods.
Yeah.
I
Oh
liked the
man. Oh
father. I
yeah.
was really sad that we didn't see more of him.
Yeah, well, he could only take so much, so he had to move to Baltimore.
He was
You did.
smart. He got out.
You did a thing where so I'm gonna I'm not saying that I dislike, but I hate when authors do this, because it's like this is gonna become a really good story when it's like the uh the characters, they get safe, they get away, but then something drags them back in, or like something like, and you're like, oh no, ultra conflict, like, yeah, like it
Yeah,
was really good.
yeah. I try to do things. I mean, because I try to do things or not do things that I don't like.
Mm,
Um, One thing that bothers me, well, I don't really read novels about serial killers. I've
okay.
dealt with a few in my old job,
Oh yeah.
but but the thing about it is, there seems to be a cliche that once the lead cop gets too close, the serial killer starts targeting him or his family.
Mm,
I mean,
okay.
it worked for Hannibal Lecter in a way, but
Sure.
that, I mean, first of all, serial killers aren't really that aware of what's going on, and secondly, they want to stay as far away from the police as possible.
Hmm.
you kill a cop's wife, you target a cop's family, and you're going to have 3-4 times the number of cops coming in.
Not smart. Yep. If Grand Theft Auto has taught me anything, it's that you don't go after the cop cars, because then you get in like level high alert. You know, it's the same thing but different. But so I like asking a variant of this question when yeah, sometimes. So you both being writers, and I'm sure there's all sorts of people that listen to this podcast. I'm sure there might be some people that are aspiring writers or maybe newer in the craft. Do you have any advice for aspiring writers or just people that are trying to write in general?
My standard advice is treat it like a dedicated hobby.
Hmm.
If you're wrong, you're pleasantly surprised. If you're right, you don't become cynical.
Okay.
So much about writing is luck. You need the skill, you need the opportunity, but luck plays a big part of it. And so you can work really hard for a really long time
Yeah.
and not feel like you're getting anywhere. If you give up, you're definitely not going to get anywhere. But you can't be driven by, I have to be a bestseller. I have to be with a big publisher. It's great if you can do that. And I'm not saying not to pursue it, but be content with the success that you have and be grateful for anything more that comes your way.
Nice.
But don't let it sour you to the passion and pleasure that you get from writing to begin with.
Yes. For those who are starting out, or have started, or first of all, write what you don't know.
Hmm.
For instance, with the Snallygaster, I didn't know about Snallygaster. Before I started writing about it, I read everything I could about Snallygasters.
You can
Same
tell.
with Dwayne.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't, if you're going to set a story in Ocean City, Maryland, make sure you know about Ocean
Right.
City, Maryland.
Yeah, totally.
And the people say, well, I can't write a book because I don't have the time. Our friend C.J. Henderson wrote an entire novel on his lunch hour.
Wow.
Not one lunch hour.
Well,
Right.
not yet.
Biggest lunch hour you've ever
Well,
seen.
toward the end, he probably could. He would have plotted one out. But on his lunch hours, he would take his lunch hours and write.
That's awesome.
If you think about it, the average novel is about, let's just say, 60,000 words.
Okay.
If you write 500 words a day, 5 days a week, that's 2,500 words, which means you'll have 10,000 words at the end of a month. In 6 months, you'll have 60,000 words.
Wow.
And that's giving yourself Saturday and Sunday off.
It's important to give yourself time off.
Yeah. So, you don't have to write every day, but when you do write, I wish there was a computer just for writers that wouldn't access the internet. Well, you need the internet for research, but you wouldn't be able to play solitaire. You wouldn't be able to play games. You just write, which is why when somebody says write for an hour, no, that's not going to work, because you can spend a half an hour fiddling around. I like to write by word count. When I realized, when Danielle gave me the news that they like the idea of
Marching orders.
well, whatever. That Box Mountain liked the idea of Snallygasters and Dwayne so much, they wanted to be the first book.
Yeah.
And this was in August. And Danielle, I couldn't turn it in December because, so I only had about, let's just say, about 2 months to write it. my general goal is usually about between, say, 700 and 1,000 words at a time.
Okay.
For this project, I pushed myself at 1,500 words a day, every day.
Wow.
And it was grueling, but I did it. And,
Paid off in the end.
yes, it did, but, usually
Yeah.
about when you hit about 1,000 words, it's going to go, okay, I can see the finish line for the day. This lap is, this lap is almost over. Let me just get there.
Nice. No, the book turned out amazing.
Thank you.
Bravo to you. I can't wait to see what comes down the line from you guys. I'm curious, and this is kind of a lead into next week's episode because for some reason it's Snallygaster month at the Bigfoot Society, so I'm gonna have to change the name of the podcast. But did you guys know that there is actually a Snallygaster museum opening up in Maryland?
No.
Oh, cool. Frederick County?
Yes, because I'm interviewing the person who's opening it up for next
Tell them
week.
about the book. Tell them about the book.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm like saying there could be some maybe work something out, maybe, but
Frederick County is only an hour from me.
there you
Cool.
go. It could be some magic happening there, but I'm excited to definitely have that interview as well. But man, so good, so good. Let me make sure that I really want to make sure I get all my audience questions. I hate if I miss any. Um, oh, okay. Well, there's some kind of funny ones, so buckle up. Harrison from the Tailgate podcast says, "Why did the cover monster skip leg day?
Wait, why did it what?
Why did he skip leg day?"
His
Harrison, why do
legs
you
are
have to
there.
be hating on Snallygasters? They're fine the way they are.
He's got legs.
See,
Yeah,
he
they're fine. They're
flies.
fine. Yeah, he
The
doesn't
muscles
need 'em,
are
he
in the
flies.
wings.
All right, he's being sassy. So it's fine. Outcast at last says from Instagram says it's more of well, it's a statement comment question. We'll see. Maybe Mothman was a Snallygaster. Ohio and West Virginia full of them. Maybe.
Maybe related.
I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Some of the
Donna.
research actually did kind of point in that direction, that
Ah.
possible direction.
Oh.
Just as put this way, Bigfoot has been reported to be in Ocean City, Maryland, or at least
Right.
on the Delmarva Peninsula. There was speculation that it was a misidentification and it was Dwayne.
Wow. Okay.
Which would explain something I wrote in the book.
Right.
Because
awesome.
so it's possible that at least in the Northeast there was a common ancestor or two, possibly possibly they say birds are descended from dinosaurs. There could be a dinosaur or something from which a couple of dinosaurs from which the Northeast cryptids came from.
Exactly, and it's like out here. So saddle up again, listeners, because I'm hitting the necessary Van Meter visitor quote for every episode. I get flack for that, but whatever, guys. Actually, so I'm in Iowa, and the Van Meter visitor is our top cryptid, and they say one of the theories is maybe it was related to the Snallygaster, like it went out and then like that, somehow it's 60 years prior to the Mothman is the Van Meter visitor, but it's like there's all these theories and it's like it's crazy. Another thing is how different parts of the country could have different names for the same creature.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We can't look at the whole picture at once. That's the crazy thing. So
everybody sees them at different times and calls them their own thing.
Yep. Or different viewpoints through different cultures as well. Different cultures. Oh, and I forget who brought this up. I'm sorry, I can't credit you for this, but different cultures different times of history will focus on different things, different
Mhm.
aspects of the creature. I feel so bad. I can't credit this person.
The
I'm sorry.
the blind men and the elephant.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. Oh man.
What you see depends, or actually, one of my series is a Baltimore City police detective who hunts monsters.
Oh, cool.
Her name is Bianca Jones, and the first book is Here There Be Monsters. And when she is first exposed to the preternatural, as her mentor calls it, uses an example of of a, a of a coin.
Hmm.
That if you hold the coin up with the head facing it, you see a circle. If you turn it on the side, you see a line.
Wow. Yep.
So it all depends on how you look at things. When it comes to the preternatural, the mythos creatures, all most of us can see is the line, but others can see the circle.
That is cool. I like that. Guys, we are getting believe it or not, we're getting close to the end.
Push the
Thank you for
clock back.
coming
This is
on,
fun.
Danielle and John. Well, I mean, you're going to be making enough content in the future. It's like it's not out of the question. My goodness, I'm excited to see like uh, how it's all connected, but also how each author has their own voice. That'll be really cool. Um, oh, we'll save. I have a question for the Patreon portion. I'm going to ask you, Danielle. So,
Okay.
but before we finish the episode, go ahead and do a one more pitch for the Systema Paradoxa, where you can find the books, how you can get them, all that good stuff, if you don't mind.
So all of the volumes that are currently in the can are available for pre-order online.
Nice.
They will not release until after they've appeared in their respective boxes.
Okay.
So, and of course, sign up for Cryptid Crate and you'll get first crack at them.
Along with other neat stuff.
Oh, really neat stuff. My goodness, like I love Cryptic Crate. I've gotten so much cool stuff. But John, if let's say people have read your book and they're like, wow, I really like the way that this guy writes. How can they find other books that you've written to read?
Okay. Well, the ones that are in eSpec, they can go to the eSpec webpage.
Okay. Awesome.
But generally, I do have an author's page on Amazon.
Okay.
And if you go to When the Moon Shines, John L. French,
Mm-hmm.
and click on my name,
Okay. Yep.
then my author's page comes up.
Nice.
Because of my last name, if you just search for John French, you get a lot of stuff on French history and
Okay.
French literature,
Yep.
or books en français. So and there. Oh, by the way, he writes a good book. He writes for Warhammer. His name is John French, without the L. He's a good writer, but he's not me.
Funny.
However,
Yeah.
if you're at a convention and you want me to sign one of his books, I will write, "This is not my book, John L. French."
But you'll still step up to the plate and do it,
Yes.
which is commendable. Um, so yeah, I'll definitely go ahead and share that in the show notes and that link as well. Any links that you want me to put in there, I will put that in as well. But we're gonna go ahead. Well, before we finish the episode, anything else that we didn't hit on that we should have? I think this has been a really good
It's been
intro to
fun.
System Paradoxa. So
We have both a Twitter and a Facebook page that people can follow.
yes. Yep.
We are accepting suggestions of what obscure cryptids people might like to see. And
Nice.
we are also looking for quotes that we can use at the top of each title page for the books
I love it.
that are relevant to cryptozoology or particular cryptids. And
Okay.
we try to match those up to the content in the book. So
That's awesome.
quotable sources, ones that we can reference that people will recognize are best.
Right. Totally.
And
Oh man.
I'm on Facebook under the name John French, and I have an author's page under the name John L. French.
Awesome.
You
Very
can find me anywhere as Danielle Ackley-McPhail. The
Yeah,
world can only handle just one.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna guess that you've got that one on lock. There's no others out there, definitely. But well, thanks again to both of you, John and Danielle, for coming on. They have agreed for hanging out a little bit longer to share some stories for the Patreon Bigfoot Society After Dark. John's got some crazy stories. Also, I'm gonna ask Danielle about one other thing about things that she makes. So if you want to hear about that, you gotta support the Bigfoot Society Patreon for $5 a month. It's a good cause. So good talking to you guys, and we will talk to you next week when I interview Sarah with the Snallygaster House Museum. So it's
Sweet.
Snallygaster month, Bigfoot Society. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for
Thank you for having
us.
us.